So I guess you agree with me that we've had a workshop where we've seen a bit of everything. We've seen a lot of the data sources that are available currently. We've seen a little bit the composition of the value-added chain and which actors work to provide what type of data and to whom. And even though not all of them are here, we had a few farmers who were in the room, and we understood that farmers were part of the end users, but also a big role from the end user point of view was to be assumed by cooperatives, so any sort of demand aggregator. And we also had to speak with the big agriculture companies, so Bayer, Pioneer, etc. But if we are to talk about how to build a house, how to build a new farming house, perhaps we should ask, I don't know if there are any farmers left in the room, because I think you agree with me that the foundation of the house are the end user needs. That unless we know what those are, unless we respond to those, the house cannot stand. So are there any farmers in the room still who could give us a feedback overall? How interesting, how useful do you find all these data sources? What would be your advice for the value-adding sector, for all these actors who work to provide services for the farmers? Could you tell us from your own experience?
Sorry about my English, it's not really good. Once again, the question.
Tell us how interesting you find the different data sources. How useful are these for your work? When you leave today this workshop, what will you take away in terms of conclusions from everything you have seen?
It's a way, a way to go. Some things are usable now. Some things have to be worked under in a better way, make more usable, like the app, hands away from companies like Monsanto. I think the European, it should be, I'm an organic farmer, and I'm very distant to these big companies. They force us in a direction I don't like, and I think it's not good for die Gesellschaft, for the society. I think this from the European Union, it should come from corporates, farming corporates like RBA. I think it's the better way, and from the environment, like the Austrian environment program for the agriculture, from this I think it's better from there it comes. And what I'm really missing is nobody looks to the soil. A good soil have the possibility to 600 Millimeter Niederschlag zu speichern.
Store up to 600 millimeters of water.
Nobody looks to this. And I think this is a real important part to bring in this, to bring together. Yeah.
I just want to comment, and then I hand again the microphone. One main reason for having at least our project extended for a number of years, for 2 more years, was to take into account this comment, the soil component. We did it to some extent, but even in that, in this case, you still need data coming from different communities, soil scientists producing good soil maps that we can integrate. But this comment is extremely relevant, and we are doing our best at least in our pilot, but also know in other pilot areas to integrate this component. This is, of course, something to consider. Thanks.
I thought that this was a very important point, and I had a discussion with Corner outside the room, that soil data is missing. And we used to talk, and we are talking about remote sensing. I prefer, when we do precision agriculture, to talk about earth observation data, and this will be including proxy sensing, in situ data, telemetric data, and of course, remote sensing data in integrated form, where the storage, the soil, is taken good care of. One thing that is missing from that is soil spec libraries in order to be able to characterize soils. Other colleagues of ours have really proceeded with proxy sensing data in having all relative spectra, soil spectra data, that right now we are trying to build the relevant libraries to address this very important issue. On the other side, in the United States, there is an instrument that scans the soil, and this creates soil zonation. That is a very important thing, in addition to everything else that we have discussed up to now. So that's something that we are doing it right now.
Yes.
There's one more question.
Maybe just a brief reaction. As far as I know, there's an ongoing tender for the European Horizon 2020 project about assessing soil cropping system or improving soil cropping systems. So there are 53 consortiums so far. One will be funded only. And so a huge competition, as you can see. And this is exactly targeting this. So the European Commission, the Joint Research Center, is aware of that need.
Thank you very much. Any other users or people who can represent the point of view of the users in the room? Yeah? We want to hear from the farmers first as the foundation.
Yeah, I grew up on a farm, and I want to take over a farm soon. And I would like to have a flexible software independent of any company, where I can use different data and that I can use the software also for planning, but afterwards also for documentation of the carried out measures. And yeah, that would be a good thing. And anything else?
So you mean a software that's independent from
a certain company, and where I can also use different kind of data, maybe data that I gather during my work on field, or data my workers gather on the field, but also maybe satellite data, and also interact with other companies, and I mean a governmental. Like the AMA in Austria or something like that.
So you would basically want to have your own information system and to customize it as much as possible to your own
for example,
needs.
also for different devices like mobile phones or tablets, that you can have different users at different rights to change things or add information.
So would you like a free app, if I understand correctly?
It must not be free, but open somehow like. That I can also change it and adapt it to the needs of my farm or my work.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Is there such a thing today, to any of your knowledge? Does it exist?
Thank you for that input. I think this will be the big challenge in the next years, because as I mentioned before, different companies are now developing data platforms, and of course they want to earn money. And if you haven't a big market share like a green-yellow company in the United States, which have maybe a market share with machineries about 60%, and they can do what they want by themselves. But we have in Europe, we have a very distributed, colored companies, and if everybody does provide its own data platform, you will have never the chance to combine different machines from different manufacturers and different services. And so the big challenge will be to have platforms which are able to be open accessed, so that we can involve, as we have heard this day, to involve data from different sources and different manufacturers to be constructed individually for the individual application. I think.
But who should host this platform and who should finance it?
Yes, of course, it will be hosted by different manufacturers. For example, giving you are buying maybe a product from the market. It's a software, and you use it for several years, so you will be used to it, and it will be constituted to your demands. And then you buy a new product, a new machine, or you want to involve a new data source. So it will be the challenge that you have the possibility to fit your product, which you are using for several years, into the new possibilities. You have to be able to modify the product you are using. So the big challenge will be to have standardized interfaces. Yes, standardized interfaces for into an open data platform.
And who should regulate on that? Is that something for the European Commission to do, or?
Yes, of course. I think it should be supported by the European Commission. I know that there are different consortia which are try to develop such on a commercial way, but I think it should be integrated in supporting programs of the European Commission. We need standards for open data platforms.
I guess Wireless Info is trying to do that a little bit. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to comment it anyway. So, yeah, as I have presented, maybe it will also partly answer your question, because so far we are assuming that there will be a foodie marketplace, which will be that you can buy any component you would like to use and pay only for that component, and some components will be free of charge also. All of them will be on the open source based solution. So for that reason, you can scalable your application according to your needs. But to be honest, the first year and even before the start of the project, it's absolutely obvious that you cannot solve the whole platform and to have the whole running platform within one project within 3 years. So this is just to confess.
If there was such a platform, thank you. If there was such a platform, would you allow whoever hosted that platform to use the information you enter on the platform about your plot of land, to use it, for example, to sell you or to propose, to make selling proposals for any sort of agricultural products or something like that? Because you said I want the service to be fully customizable, preferably free. So I'm thinking, what would be the commercial model behind such something like that? And perhaps the model would be for that company to use your information for marketing purposes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it depends on the company.
Yeah. It's whoever hosts this platform. If it's like a, yeah, because this platform, my idea, I don't know if you'll have to tell me if you agree, but this platform cannot exist completely unfinanced, independent of any commercial interest, unless it's state financed. But
no, just that comment. We are doing it every day without even realizing by Googling things.
exactly.
So I won't see a problem. We're already doing it with just a different way of calling it. So it's.
But who will create a European Google? That's the and if there's a Google service for agriculture, then you have to understand, is there a scope for the users using it? Sorry, Corner. Yeah. Corne was involved in a European working group on these matters. So how do you see this business models from the European Commission perspective?
What I wanted to say, maybe the discussion is about if you want to give your data to somebody else. In the Netherlands, we also have an approach with the platform. It doesn't matter who owns the platform. The basic rule in the system is that the farmer that brings in his data is his data, and it's protected. And he can only say, well, I allow somebody to use it. So if he enters his data in the system, it's not open. Yeah?
Well,
and if you keep that rule clear, then I think most parties are willing.
Yeah, but we write emails using Google Mail, and then I get offers for things that I email about from Google's selling services. And I never agreed, or at least not to my knowledge, not explicitly. I never read the small text, terms of use.
Well, I can give the experience from the Dutch farmers. They will not use a platform if the data is not protected in a way that what they enter, it's theirs. And they can decide, I give it maybe to my farm advisor, or if they are friends with Bayer, they can say, well, I allow you to have a look at it for 1 week, for 1 day, but they can end it any day. And I think that's a basic rule that a successful platform has to take in mind.
Yes, thank you. I understand one of the aspects then we have to remember and take away from the roundtable is that the issue of trust, whether it is about how the data is treated, and the issues of who is the legitimate partner for the farmers is quite important. Because you said we don't want to be told what to do by a monopoly company. We want to have different partners, and cooperatives are perhaps the sort of partners that farmers would trust more than a platform that they don't know who's managing, or than a big agricultural company. So I think that we come to the key door opener to this community, which are the cooperatives. So since we're lucky enough to have you today, could you give us your impression about the usefulness of all these data sources that you've seen? And how easy do you think it will be to integrate it and to provide it to your farmers? And what is the acceptance? What will determine how well they accept or not accept certain of the services?
I think the acceptance of the farmers is there, that they use some new technologies when they see something benefit for the farm. I think it's difficult if you have an international concern like Monsanto, Bayer, John Deere, what else, and they have the data from the farmers, from the regions, from each farmer. I think it's quite difficult because the farmers don't trust to these big global companies. But I can imagine that perhaps our system with the cooperatives is a good system that we can bring these technologies to the farmers, because the owners of the cooperatives are the farmers themselves. And so I think they trust to their own organization, and perhaps we can find some models how we can bring these informations to the farmers. But the whole day I saw an interesting discussion how we can collect all these data from satellites, with drones, with sensors, what else. I think it's not the problem to collect the data. I think the problem at the moment is to find some solutions for the farmers, because the data alone is nothing for the farmer. The farmer needs a model, a business model, a service, what else, what he can use in his farm and brings him some more money, higher yields, better quality, what else. And this is the important thing. I think we should concentrate that we can find some solutions on this way.
Very well. This brings us nicely to, because I'm aware of the time, we should soon finish. But now that we've talked a little bit about the users and the end users and what they expect and need, let's speak a little bit about the value-added chain. And I understand that most of you here today are part of that value-added chain. whether you work in data provision or data processing, or even parts of the or even consultancy services. And what it seemed to me, I'm not a technical person. What I took away though from the presentations today is that, as you say, there are many data sources, and each person who works for a specific technology says that that technology is the best, and all the others should adapt to that technology. So the question is for us together as a group to understand who should adapt to what. We spoke in the beginning about this false competition between aerial, drone, satellite, the different platforms that exist. The wireless info is one example of a platform, but there are many, many different platforms. Who should do what, and who should adapt to whom? And also, what should be provided for free? There was a lot of talk, why do the Americans, they provide data for free? Why don't the Europeans do the same? I talked with European companies who said, now Europe will provide Sentinel for free, and that will create more competition from the US. They feel threatened by the US, but funny enough, the US doesn't feel threatened by European companies who already use Landsat data. So do you have any insights into the organizations of this value-added chain between the different data provisions? What are your insights into this big melting pot of data sensors and actors? Yeah, who should start? Corne?
Well, maybe what I like to add to this discussion is maybe not so who is doing what, but what I noticed the last 5 years is that a lot of, you could say, data are provided as a black box, and it's not clear what's really provided. And I can give an example. Like 2 weeks ago, I was analyzing 2 NDVI files from different satellites, and then it appears that from the same field, the NDVI values differ like 30%. Well, can you imagine if you link that value to an algorithm that says something about a dose? And they say, well, it's no problem, it's the same value. No, it's not true. And what I mean with black box, they are not clear about how they calculate the sort of products that are provided. I think that's a problem. So a rule should be that it's transparent and clear what data are provided. And that, I think, will help the use of this type of data in practice.
So I guess this brings us to the question of standards, which somebody had mentioned earlier on. Yes.
Yes, but the NDVI formula is clear. Yeah? So that is a standard. But there are companies that put, well, some use a little bit different data, little bit different NDVI on the market and say, well, it's an NDVI, which is in fact not true. Yeah, so it's not complying with the standards. There are standards, but the industry has to comply with these standards.
Okay, so there are standards for the industry then. It's just different standards.
Talk about this NDVI, yes, it's clear.
Yeah, Tame, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, there was a meeting in Brussels, I think 1 year ago, about the user-driven approach to remote sensing, and I was there as well. And in that discussion, I said at a certain moment, well, if you want to make a business in remote sensing with farmers, your subsidy should not come from governments, but your subsidy should come from the users. They should pay for your product, and therefore that's what you should base your business on. That's where you should build your business on and develop your services. So I strongly believe in what you don't pay is what you don't get. The reverse of what Microsoft sometimes is saying. If you can only build your business on free data and open data, you rely on the courtesy of others for providing it, and you also do not expect so much value from it from your users. So I think it's important for the whole value chain to invest a lot more time in understanding what users are interested in, and users are absolutely willing to pay. Farmers are willing to pay, but you have to provide something that works, that does what it does, that without mistakes, or less mistakes. And that is a very difficult situation, and that needs time to overcome. And free and open data can help companies to overcome this time of getting enough critical mass to move forward. But in the end, I think users should pay for what they get, and you should build your business model on a premium paid by users for your service, and not on free data.
But it's still an opportunity that Sentinel data will be provided for free, isn't it? For cost reasons.
It's lowering the cost of companies who work with
Yes.
it. Yes, of course. Yes. But if you calculate it, the fraction of the data in the whole value chain of what the farmer is paying, we had prices here of €5 per hectare or €10 per hectare. The whole price of the data is very small part of that. All the other costs are going sitting in the processing, in the translation to services, in guaranteeing the services, in marketing, etc., etc.
Yes.
So there's much more cost involved in the data.
Yes, you wanted to add something?
I have a question. And is semantic technology already used for agricultural services? Is it widespread, or is it just, I don't know, few players? Or?
I'm not the best person to answer that. I would leave it to the specialists.
On the top of the discussions, first of all, I would like to emphasize what Corne has mentioned. Similar example, combining two data sets that luckily had metadata. They should be in the same coordinate system in the Web Mercator. They were differing about 250 meters. Typical example. So even if there are required metadata, it's not a solution because those metadata are not verified, they are not true several times. And regarding the semantic technologies, yes, they are available. We are trying to implement them. But on the other hand, it's the same question as with the metadata. Nobody from the data providers is willing to fill in the semantic information nor the correct metadata because this is extra work, this costs money and so on, and they would like to sell their data anyway. Very hardly said, sorry.
I would like to take the opportunity to talk about Sentinel because you mentioned several times Sentinel-2. I mean, the policy from the Commission is very clear. The data is for free and this is guaranteed, okay? So, but they say we will only provide to one hub per country this data, meaning Austria has to decide where the data will be located, where it will be stored, and where it will be analyzed. The problem is, at one side, we are very happy having this source of data because it really gives us, for the first time in history, the time of revisit frequency we require, so weekly data, or even better, at 10-meter resolution in 15 or more spectral bands. So the sensor is perfect, but we don't know how to handle this massive amount of data. So that is a problem, and there ESA has a problem with the Commission. Both say the other is responsible, and at the end, it's the countries who will have to pay for hosting the data and make it available to the companies. But the data in principle is for free, and there will be also core services, okay, and they will also be for free. For example, NDVI products or LAI products will be processed as a core service and will be made available to the users. But of course not everyone is happy with NDVI or LAI. Others require more specialized products. So there's still a lot of research or development needed. I was a bit surprised this morning. I don't want to play the bad boy. But today it looked a bit easy, and we just take the satellite image and we get all the information. There's a lot of science behind, and there's a lot of knowledge behind to get really the information we want. So it's up to us to develop those algorithms and to implement them. As for the question of standards, someone was saying there's a standard NDVI. Of course there's not. I mean, it's clear that it's just a formula. We have no standardized products, and I'm quite happy that they are not standardized, because in this way we can compete. Look, for example, we get per year almost 200,000 euros to filter NDVI data for Kenya. And in Kenya, they can get the same data for free in principle. but they prefer our data because it's more reliable, okay? Because we have a better filter, we remove better the cloud and the atmosphere and so on. So I'm really in favor of keeping the competition open as long as possible, okay? And not to cut too early, let's say, the development and the competition, because at the end, all will converge to the best solution in a kind of open market.
It's a bit, I had a question to that actually. Do you think that the competition from the public sector, who already receives public money, is a bit unfair to companies who might like to provide a similar kind of service?
No, I don't see any public company. I mean, the JRC does something in remote sensing and in agriculture.
But the service you mentioned was provided by the university in Kenya.
No, the service I was mentioning, it's paid by the European Commission via the government of Kenya to us. So.
And you're a university.
And we are a university.
Does that remove chances
course,
from a private company to do that service?
It's fully open. It was an open, how do you say, an open tender, and everyone
yes, of course, you got the job, so that's wonderful. But just in general, another aspect of it, and that's why I was also wondering, for example, a service like the one you developed, who should take it over? Because some companies say that when you have free tender, calls for tender by the European Commission, there is a problem with the fact that companies who are not financed by public money compete equally with public actors, and that's unfair competition. Would you agree?
But this is their usual complaint. I mean, we have also disadvantages as public entities compared to private companies. You see, of course.
Like what?
That we are bounded to apply to rules, for example, okay? And if I would be a private company, I do what I want, you know?
And to finish off, perhaps, since we're running in time, Thomas, what will be the conditions of access to Sentinel data in Austria? How open and free will the service be, and how suitable do you estimate it to be for companies who might want to create a service based on that data?
Okay, first of all, I have to continue what Clement said before on the availability on Sentinel data. The data policy is clear, it's free and open. The moment the question is, it's fine if it's free and open, but it has to be accessible too. So you need to get the free data to your laboratory, to your company, to your university. And the normal solution is that there is a ground segment, which is a central ground segment paid by the Copernicus program, and from there you should have access to the data. And there are several channels to get the data. And they probably are enough for most of the players in Europe, but it might be a problem with the massive data for those who need a lot of data in very short intervals, maybe real-time data. And in the moment, there is some, how to say, uncertainty if everything will work when all the Sentinels come into place. And there is a possible solution that also Clement addressed this very shortly, that also for the member states it is possible to organize a data pipe to their country. But in the moment it's still to think if this is really necessary and how should we organize it. That's also an open discussion in the moment in Austria. On the other side, it's played back to Europe because we pay a lot of money for the satellites, and I think it's incredible somehow that it's really hard to use the data.
And that they're only thinking about that now, once the satellites are already there.
Yeah, so
you would have thought that they would have thought about it before.
It's more sexy, I think, to talk about the satellites in the orbit than to talk about the things we have to do on ground. And at the moment it's a bit of a moving target, but I think the Commission works towards a solution that maybe in 1 year time or so there might be I would say a central solution for that. And until then we have to look what happens. But I think for most of the users, it's fine as it is now. It's not so that so many users need this massive amount of data. Then.
But perhaps some users who don't currently use the sources might come in if it was easier to access them.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I think the data should be free and open, and they should be as easy accessible as possible to get as many people involved in using this data. I think that's a big opportunity.
Yes. And we willingly made this workshop sound simple because to the farmer, unfortunately or fortunately, they don't care about the algorithms. They don't care where the data is coming from. They just want something simple that they can customize as much as they like, that they can have on their mobile phones, on their tractors, and it has to be simple. And the biggest challenge today, Tame, you will confirm perhaps because you also work with the users quite a bit, and Francesco and Laura also, you work with users quite a bit, is there is some technology that works, and we have seen that it works. But how does it actually reach the final user? And it has to be simple. And unfortunately, there are no simple answers in the value-added chain, but the final product has to be simple. Are there any other remarks? Yes?
One very simple remarks about the uptake of technology by farmers. And farmers want to increase their income. So we have to make very simple calculation, also taking some data from Alfonso's experiment. 10 tons of barley in Castilla-La Mancha per hectare. And the price on the market is 18 cents per kilo. So it means that the revenue is 1,800 euro per hectare. If we are able to demonstrate that we can increment by 1% only this income to the farmer, means 18 euro per hectare. The data Francesco showed this morning show that 18 euro per hectare is far beyond the price acceptable for an extension of 20,000 hectares. So it's just a matter of convincing farmers that the investment we are talking about is very small. And if we can show, as scientists or remote sensing specialists, they can increase 1% of their income, even in a low-income crop like barley, this already covers the cost for the service. The problem is how to explain this to the farmers. This is not my job, this is not Francesco's job, it's the job of people which are closer to the farmers. And that segment has to be very well understood.
But then again, you've seen that cooperatives buy drones, because drones, it's easy to have the feeling, oh yes, I own something, it's quite concrete, I know I can fly it over my fields. How do you feel about that?
We are back to a technical issue here. I mean, I have got already expressed my point of view, but I don't think that drones is covering 18 euro per hectare. It costs much more. Even the cheapest drone is much more expensive than that.
It must be, though, not only the calculations, the objective reasons for satellites. There are also the more subjective reasons, which are, I own a drone, it's mine, I know I can get the data from it, is more simple. What do you think?
With the drones, for example, we had the discussion with the warm light camera against wild animals. Especially in Lower Austria, we have a lot of problems with wild boars in maize. Especially in big areas of maize, you have wild boars, you cannot see them during the whole period. And when the harvest machine comes, you can see the damaged corn, and then you see how big is the problem in the field. And our costs for one day flight with the drone is 290 euros. And this is the money the farmer or the hunting company or the hunting persons have to pay. But when they have a damaged cornfield with 30 or 40% damaged corn plants, I think the value is quite higher than this 290 euros. And so I think it's a good solution the farmers and also for the hunters, that they have a cheap solution to can defeat the wild boars in the cornfields. And another model can be the irrigation system. But I agree with you. We have to calculate and bring the information to the farmer what he can save on money or what he can earn on more money for his farm, for his field, for his area, or for his crop, for example. And I think then I see no problem to implement these new technologies. And last week on Monday we had a big meeting in Linz, in Upper Austria, with all of our managing directors of the cooperatives and the owners. And we showed them some future trends, and we showed them also our drone project. We showed them some ideas about satellites in agricultural farming and so on. And they agreed with us, and they said we are ready for these technologies. The one point which can be a little bit difficult in the next 1 or 2 years is that a lot of farmers don't use smartphones or tablets in their work during the day. They have only a computer at home, but no smartphones. We have a survey in our company, and this survey shows us that about 20% of the farmers use a smartphone, and less than 10% use a tablet when they are on the field or on the tractor. And so that can be a little bit difficult to show them or to bring them the information on a smartphone. But yes, we can find perhaps other solutions on the computer at home with that system they can work, for example.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've talked about, I think, almost every room of the house you were talking about. I think there's quite a bit of food for thought, and perhaps, Francesco, we can offer to draft some conclusions or a synthesis of the main points, critical points that stuck out from the discussion today. So I will, if you agree, I will end the roundtable here, thanking you very much for participating and getting involved. And I do hope that each of you and each of us will take home some useful ideas to implement in the future. Thank you very much to Francesco for inviting EURISI to participate in this. And if I can just plug one last thing for EURISI, we're currently undertaking a survey on the users and the cost benefits that the users get from using satellite services. So if there are any users of satellite services among you, I would like to invite you to go on our website and to fill up the questionnaire. It doesn't take very long. And the results of the survey will be made available later this year for any of you that will be interested in knowing what benefits users derive from using satellite services. This is for many different sectors, not just agriculture. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming, participating. I hope it was interesting for you as well. For me, it was extremely useful. And summarize, and I hope to see you again very, very soon. Thanks.